listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Horror Ramblings podcast, everybody. You guys know you love us. It's the show about all things horror. I'm your host, Lester Blosser, joined by my co-host, Stephen White. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing fantastic.
I know you were extremely excited, and you told me no peeking in the email because you said we had a special guest.
I did.
And we do have a very special guest today.
We do.
I can't do him any justice. I can tell everybody that we have a gentleman on the show. If he wants me to call him a gentleman, I'll call him a gentleman.
He's a gentleman.
But we do have a guest. Yeah, we do have a guest, and I know that you had something set up to say, so I'll let you tell all the people out there who we have with us today.
Well, you see, because on the other podcast I do, I've been told that I kind of do intros pretty well, and I wanted to make this special, so I wanted to do it upright. So joining us this week in the hallowed halls of the Horror Ramblings podcast is a Brooklyn native that our audience should know in some way or another. As President Reagan's Secretary of State, he played a critical role in the dramatic easing of tensions in the United States and Soviet Union. That's not right. Wait a minute. Oh, wait. Sorry, here we go. As an actor, you've seen him or heard him in a number of Troma productions playing several memorably named characters such as Jeffrey the Hazmat Goon, Honky Beef, Bacon Cheeseburger, Dolphin Man, and even the Toxic Avenger. But behind the camera, he has written and directed numerous Troma shorts like Dolphin Man Battles the Sex Lobsters.
Wonderful. And
was even the creator of Kabuki Man's Cocktail Corner, but that only scratches the surface of his talents. Okay? So, some of his most notable works, in my opinion, would be as singer-songwriter, having released a number of singles, EPs, and full albums, with his most recent release, No Offense, None Taken, tearing up the Billboard charts. At least that's what I would assume, because the album is banging.
Yes,
at least, so. And people need to be listening to this. If no one's listening to this, what the hell's wrong with you? His dulcet tones can be heard singing such classics as Dirty Disco and Disco Man, and Troma's Werewolf Bitches from Outer Space, and even Silence of the Ducks from Return to Nuke 'Em High, a.k.a. Volume 2, just to name a few. But it's no doubt his work on Shudder's The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs that he'll be forever known for, from his popular hits from The Spookies Rap to Bloodsucking Freak, Frogtown Blues, even Clint Howard's tribute to, of course, in my mind, the most iconic theme, Joe Bob is Back in Town. The man is an underrated talent, so without further ado, we're pleased to welcome to the show Bad Techno himself, Johnny Bubba, a.k.a. Johnny Brennan.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was an intro. It also could be an obituary.
Right, so, exactly.
Thank you so much for that. So now I don't need anybody in my family to write one. I'll just use this podcast.
I'll forward it along, and then they can have it, and they can use it. I could even embellish it a little bit more if need be, but I was trying to keep it simple.
It's very. I was. Thank you for the deeper cuts. Some of that stuff. Bacon cheeseburger. Damn, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Honky Beef. Honky Beef was actually a short film I did in college. I got called a racist because I made a movie called Damn Suburban Honky Pimps, which was a play because back then there was a lot of guys who they were dressing like they were black guys, but they were definitely white guys.
Right.
Yeah. So I was making a joke that, say, instead of it being rap culture, it was actually pimp culture that the white people were emulating. And no, they didn't like that too much. But I thought it was kind of funny. It was like Dolomite meets, I don't know, any black and white short film you've ever seen a college kid do.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of how I feel about Blazing Saddles at this point in time. Some people are just not going to get it.
It's just not going to get it. So, but luckily, it was shot on 16 millimeter film, black and white. And it got accepted to one of the grindsploitation anthology films by a guy named Tony Newton. Mm-hmm. So, fuck whoever called me a racist. It's distributed by Troma now. So, get the fuck GTFO, as they say.
That's right. I mean, if anyone's going to do it right, it's going to be Troma. So, and I meant what I said about the theme to Joe Bob's Back in Time being iconic, because I promise you, anyone who's watched the show, they love that opening theme. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but in this past season, I remember there was one show open and you had this bitching metal guitar riff. You're just tearing it up. And that's all it was. And I loved it. But then the show just kind of started without the opening theme. And I was like, oh. And I felt like I was missing something. But I was like, yeah, I like that. But where's the theme song, man?
I agree. Anytime there's more of me, I like that too. So 2 songs in a row would have been fine by me. But I guess it was just, it may have been a time constraint or it was so extreme. It was a song called Bad Bad Luck.
Yeah.
That was for our Friday the 13th episode. And I'm so happy that I got to do that because I love metal. And I've written only a few metal songs in my life that I think got to a point where it's actually legit. And that's one of them because I mean, we were on set and I was screaming those lyrics in the bathroom at the last minute, just like it was a lot of fun. So like doing black metal vocals in a bathroom while Joe Bob Briggs is waiting for you is pretty fucking metal.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One hell of a story to tell, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just getting to work on the last drive-in is so surreal. Every single one of the musical numbers that I had to do has a little story behind it. I can't believe that it came to fruition. That it's extremely. It's like a dream.
Sure. Now I know you're no stranger to podcasts. You've been on a plethora from what I've seen. So we're going to try to do our best to cover ground that maybe others have not covered. But I'm sure we'll touch on a few little tidbits here and there. But Les, do you have any starting questions? Because I've got a few, but I wanted to pass it off to you first just to make sure.
I honestly, whenever we interview anyone, I like to just ask a really basic question, but it leaves the door open for a lot of chat. What is something just general about you that not a lot of people know? What's something that you would really like for people to know about you that they might overlook?
Huh. That's an interesting question that they might overlook.
Yeah.
So something that I want people to, I mean, I love animals. I don't like not in a sexual way, but I gush over it. When I see a dog, I laugh. That's my first reaction because I think they're the funniest creatures on the earth. Same as cats and kittens. I mean, half the time that I'm on Instagram, I'm not looking at titty videos. I mean, they're in there too.
Sure.
But I'm scrolling through for the cat videos and the dog videos. I mean, that is such a huge stress relief for me. It's and I'm sure they're some of the most popular videos on the internet. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who do that. But animals are very they calm me and they also give me a lot of joy and almost more comedy than any human ever has. I mean, just watch a horse for 3 minutes and you'll start to fucking laugh, or a cow. They're just so bizarre and funny. The fact that we coexist with these creatures on Earth that, they have some sort of consciousness and emotion and it's all there, but they just can't get to our level. So in a sad way, we kind of mock them, but at the same time, we appreciate them. And it's really weird to me that I love cows so much, but I'll full blown eat the fuck out of one.
Well,
because they're delicious. I'm sorry. I tried to go vegetarian for 3 months, and I was strict. 3 months of pork chop sent me over the edge. Steve-O put out some video on Facebook, and it got me sick to my stomach. I didn't eat pork chops or any meat for 3 months, and then I had a cheeseburger, and I just was drawn back. So it's weird. It's the yin and the yang. It's like you said before. You wonder if I want to be called a gentleman. Sometimes I'm a gentleman, sometimes I'm a furious man. I mean, it's everything is all like there's the nightmare in the dream or the reversals. Right. So everybody has a capability inside of them to be evil, good, sad, happy, all at the same time. So that's how I feel about animals. Eat and love.
Don't feel bad. I have been there myself. I used to be a much larger man, and I tried. I've been doing good. I've been doing good.
Give me some tips because I lost a lot of weight, and then this summer I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, at my heaviest I was like 260 pounds, and that was obviously years ago. I kind of found little, nuggets of ways to kind of come down a little bit. I think it was back in 2018. I was probably about 220. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try to go vegan or whatever it takes. And I've crawled myself down. I'm about 170 right now, which by technicality is not ideal. I'm still overweight, but fuck them. I still feel good.
Don't listen to the doctors.
Exactly.
You look great.
I feel good.
Great.
My pants fit, goddammit. But no, you find yourself, it's like you look at the fake meat and all the plants and everything. It's like, yeah. But then you remember meat, especially bacon. And I'm like, fuck, I love bacon. I want bacon. So you have to kind of balance it. It's a difficult journey. Let me tell you.
But I must say, I really like some of the Impossible meats. Like White Castle has a great Impossible burger. It tastes so good. So I'm not opposed to any of that stuff. I just also will eat the real thing.
There's this one chicken that I like. It's I think it's Gardenian or something. I don't remember the name of it. But it's a chicken patty. It's big, beefy, and damn, it tastes like chicken, so I'll take it.
Sounds good.
I pretend I'm eating healthy.
Hell yeah.
I wanna ask. We're going way off the rails. It doesn't matter. I want to ask about little John Brennan back in Brooklyn, because you've still got it, man. You haven't lost that accent. Let me tell you.
No, when I was in L.A., people would say a lot of times, more than New York, people were like, "Are you from Boston?" I'm like, "No, I'm not from Boston. I mean, I don't care. I'm not like one of those sports fanatics who's like, fuck Boston." No, I don't care. I love Boston. I've been to Boston a couple of times, and I think it's a great city. But I don't think I sound like I'm from Boston. Maybe I do. I don't know.
No. I've been to Boston several times. I got a friend that's from Boston. You're totally Brooklyn.
I feel like I sound more like Foghorn Leghorn or something than Boston. But
let me tell you, boy.
let me tell you something. So, Brooklyn. I've said this a few times on a couple of podcasts when they asked me about Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn. I was raised there for 7 years. But people back in the day, some girl got really offended. She's like, "You can't claim Brooklyn." And I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You only lived there for 7 years." Like, what the fuck? So those 7 years don't exist because I was only 0 to 7? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I get a little nervous whenever people say Brooklyn, because most of my life, I went from Brooklyn, choked on a couple of slices of Sicilian pizza, did some pee-pee and poo-poos and diapers up until I was 7. Then I moved to a place called Floral Park, which is on the border of Queens and Long Island. I lived on the Long Island side, so I must claim Long Island. I can't say that I was a Queens boy. But I love Long Island too. I mean, anybody who disparages Long Island is an idiot. Like, they have some of the best food in the world, some of the best beaches, beautiful women. If you're into men, beautiful men. I mean, gorgeous people walking around. They'll go to Suffolk and you'll go to Maspeth and you'll see some of the most beautiful men in the world. So I just think Long Island is a great place. So that was like most of my time. I was there from like 7 to about 22 or 21, and then I moved to LA for 8 years.
I mean, you're New York native all the way, so it doesn't matter whether you're Brooklyn or Long Island. You're New York. You can tell you're New York.
New York,
Boston the hell.
That's right. But I still love Boston.
Right. I mean, no, it's a fun place. I've been there several times myself. It's a nice place.
Yeah.
I gotta get out more.
Yeah, you do. Come on, man.
You gotta go. There's this great tour. There's a walking tour, and it gives you all like the historical places where whoever the fuck was there, Benjamin Franklin. They were all walking around there, and you do the walk. There's like all these old cemeteries. It's beautiful.
Hit all the trains, hit all the subways. You go all over, man.
Yeah.
Just another thing to add to the list, I guess.
We'll drag you along.
Yeah, let's go.
So I want to, since there are two elements to John Brennan that I want to explore. First of all, let me ask you this: which would you say was kind of your passion early on? Was it music or horror?
Kind of simultaneous. But there's a picture of me when I'm really young. I'm talking maybe like 2 or 3 years old, and my girlfriend and my mother found it. They were going through pictures in my parents' attic. And I'm really little, and it's Christmas morning, and I have a big, like, happy expression on my face. And below me is this Fisher Price record player. that plays 45s. So I feel like, I mean, the expression on my face, it's like I just won the lottery or something. You know, I'm like flipping out. And I mean, sure, it's Christmas morning, but just that expression for that musical thing that would let me allow me to listen to 45s and stuff lets me know that music was very important to me from an early age.
Sure.
Movies, not too much after that. So back in the day when I was in Brooklyn, which I'm claiming, it was still like before the dawn of home consumer like video cameras, but you were able to rent these VHS cams that you could take over the weekend to a family party and shoot stuff and then keep the tape, and you had this tape. So I was about 5 or 6 when we rented one of those for a New Year's Eve party, and immediately I'm directing. I'm like, let's make a movie. And so there's like all this footage of me. I'm like, for some reason I tied toilet paper to my wrists and ankles, and I'm doing karate, and it's just all this stuff. So that was not too long after the music love.
So it was just, it's right there. You had it ingrained.
When I was a kid, it was like not the greatest, but the greatest time to be a kid and consuming entertainment. We had the dawn of cable, the dawn of VHS, the dawn. I mean, MTV was a real thing. Mm-hmm. You had all this great music on the pop charts. I mean, you mentioned the Billboard charts. Now, Billboard charts today is a joke. All the best music is not on the Billboard charts. I mean, there's good music that gets onto the Billboard charts, but that doesn't mean shit. You know how many fucking great bands will never reach the Billboard charts? Fuck the Billboard charts. So, like, back then, it was like so much more out there. And then forget it. Movies back then. I mean, my kindergarten graduation, I went to see the Goonies in the movie theaters. Yes. Jesus Christ. What kids today, they get to see the 17th iteration of the same Marvel movie, which is cool. I just watched Age of Ultron recently, I thought it was great. I had forgotten it even existed. But as a kid, just all those things, Indiana Jones, all that shit. It's like Star Wars. What a great time to be a child.
Right. No, my wife and I, we have a disagreement about that because she and Lester, you may side with my wife. He and my wife were old high school buddies. Let me just break that down real quick, okay? They grew up, their childhood was the 90s. Mine was the 80s. I'm like you. We're probably like months apart. And 79 October, what are you like?
Yes, April 79. April. Yeah.
Okay, so we're right there. I get it. So she'll sit there and say, the 90s was the best. I'm like, yeah, but 80s, You're like, I can point to all these things, like you just said. And I'm just like, yeah, but those are legends, and 90s is good, but...
Didn't you like being a teen in the 90s? I thought it was great also.
I had my moments. They were just like hit and miss, so, I didn't hate it. I
thought it was great. Yeah. I got lucky. I fucking went to Woodstock 94. Not 99, not the rape fiesta. I didn't go to the rape fiesta. I went to one I went to the one that was actually cool.
Right.
And it had better bands and shit. So I was 13 years old. I mean, shit, that's like one of the greatest experiences of my entire life. The 90s were awesome too.
Yeah.
I just wish that I had been born maybe I don't know. I wish I had experienced some of my teens in the 80s and then crossed over into the 90s. That would have been a little bit better,
Yeah, no, I have a few friends that I kind of get that vibe from. They're a little older than I am, and they give me that sensibility, like, teen in the 80s. I'm like, yeah. What did I miss, man?
oh, you missed all the best metal shows. Holy shit.
Now I have to point something out. I actually don't agree with your wife. Not fully.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to bring up Woodstock for a minute. Now, my parents are older. My parents are about the same age as most of my friends' grandparents. My father went to the original Woodstock.
Amazing.
Damn.
He doesn't remember any of it. That's what he tells me. He thinks he had a good time. But because my parents were older, we got introduced to a lot of stuff, even in the 90s. When I was growing up, I was getting introduced to stuff from the 70s and the 80s. So that was part of my childhood.
Great.
And then certain things from the 90s, yes, there are certain things from the 90s that are just killer, let's be honest. But I think every generation has its stuff that's pretty cool, But
sure.
Just like with movies, sort of what you said, different iterations of the same thing over and over.
Yeah,
it gets redundant.
Especially with now there's so much content that needs to be put out. It's like, let's remake the feeling of a movie, like,
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, which is fun. Sometimes it works, but
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't. And I don't know, like, I feel like it was a special spark in the 80s and 90s of just this like renaissance. Like, for instance, in the 80s, you had this renaissance of what the same thing that the Universal monsters were in the 30s and 40s with like Freddy and Michael Myers and stuff, but they weren't trying to do that. They were just doing new monsters. Now in today's age, I feel like people would be like, let's do a mashup of the thing and with the and it would just be like so it would ring false.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. There was something special and original and fucked up about the 80s, and probably a lot of cocaine there.
Yeah, no doubt. But no, I think you're onto something, because I feel like a lot of horror today just misses the mark. Like they're trying to do something, and as opposed to just trying to do something original and fun. It's like they're trying to meet a goal.
And yes, meet a goal, and like not even like original. There's not really a lot of original is a hard word to quantify, because I mean, is Michael Myers original? I mean, I don't know. A psycho killer since the dawn of time. You know what I'm saying? But the parts that they added to it is that made it embellish it. So I feel like nowadays it's like we need to do a slasher instead of doing something that's like, we need to do something that's cool and psychologically fucked up. What's going to fuck up the audience, and then build the genre around it. I feel like now people need to start with themes more, and that might bring up more interesting horror things than starting with genre.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And we've talked about it on previous shows, just sort of what you had said. It's all about shock value anymore. It's how much can we shock the audience in this moment. I would rather go in and watch a movie that maybe is a slow burn, but when I go home after watching it, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about it going, what just happened?
Yeah.
It just, something that you take with you. I think that's the thing about movies from the 80s and the 90s. You held on to those things for an extended amount of time. You really thought about those things. And it was subtle things that they did. Content is so easily available now, and we got to make things shiny and shocking or people aren't going to pay attention to them,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing about the 80s and the 90s, and God, this is going to make me sound like an old guy or something.
Yeah.
Before the internet became what it is today, I think things were looked at a little differently, because it is so easy to just get on the internet and get that fix that you need for content. You can see kitties, you can see titties, you can see horror, you can see all kinds of things.
Everything.
And it never used to be that way.
Yeah, I think what's about if we're going to keep going about the 80s and 90s, like in the 80s, they brought exploitation into the mainstream, which is awesome. All of a sudden, these Hollywood movies were making exploitation movies that were like almost shunned back in the day. Now there is no mainstream. There really isn't. There's not a mainstream. Everything is kind of has a equal playing field. Not always. I mean, you're always gonna have your Disneys and your whatever, but people like you and me have a chance now, more than there was back in the 80s and 90s, to make something and get it out there and for a shitload of people to see it. So I feel like some of the times people try to piggyback on the success of something that Hollywood made instead of piggybacking on their own imagination and saying, what would scare me? What would make me really uncomfortable if I saw a movie? And I feel like if more writers start from that place, we might get to see some more original work pretty soon. And some people are doing that. I mean, Ari Aster, I know that a lot of people talk shit about Hereditary and Midsommar, but I think those are great movies.
Yeah,
great movies.
We just praised them, I think, last episode before that? Because I brought his name up. And we were talking about directors that need we were doing
a Mount Rushmore of horror. That's
right.
That's the one we were doing.
No, we haven't even aired that yet. Holy shit.
Yeah, not yet.
Or has
it? Surprise
I don't
episode.
know. Whoops.
May have just did a spoiler.
Edit. Edit.
Now, I have a quick question, and this is very random, and my brain works very randomly. Speaking of the 80s and everything, this is like a two-part question. So, first question is, What would you say is one of your favorite? You can do a horror franchise or a horror film from the 80s that has stuck with you. And the second question, because I just think this one would be a little entertaining to get the answer to, what was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon growing up?
Oh, interesting. So, like a horror movie or a franchise, or
Yeah.
just anything that stuck with me. The movie that I think for me has stood the test of time, that I've watched it a billion times from the time when I was a child, seeing it in the theater up until I'll watch it right now, and I think it's a fucking masterpiece, is The Lost Boys. I think that's one of the most interesting, subversive, also great mainstream entertainment. It's all boiled into one thing. Like there's a lot of undertones of fucked up things in that movie, but it's also entertainment that if your grandmother saw it, she could be like, oh, that was exciting. There's just like, it's such a well-crafted, good movie. All the performances are good. All the music is good. When I was a kid, I saw it in the theater in 1987. And I then, whenever it came out on VHS, maybe 6-8 months later, I watched it, or the next summer, I watched it the whole summer 100 times. Like, I kept watching it to the point where my parents were like, are you all right? Why are you watching this movie so much? And it was just, I explained it. The music is great, everything. So now anytime I see it, I still watch it, and I could watch it from any part in the movie. And I think there's so much to unravel in that story, between like a divorced family that's has to pick up and move to a new place, and everything's strange and fucked up. There's so many ways you could read that story. So yeah, The Lost Boys has stuck with me for a very, very long time.
Very nice.
As far as a Saturday morning cartoon, I remember, I don't know why, but Garfield and Friends kind of comes into my like, it's the first one that pops out. I know that there were a billion others at that time, but Garfield and Friends, because I used to, again, people disparage Garfield, but fuck that shit. Garfield's awesome. Garfield's also awesome with the remixes, like when they take Garfield out of the frame and it's just John Arbuckle talking to himself, like it's Garfield without Garfield. Though that's great too. But as a kid, I used to go to like the Scholastic book fairs and get the Garfield books, like Garfield Chews the Fat, or Garfield Takes Up Space, all those stuff. And just that one of the greatest one-shot Halloween specials of all time is Garfield's Halloween Adventure. That holds up to this day. I did another podcast, a podcast called Totally Tunular, who does all sorts of revisits to all this stuff. And the only thing I wanted to do was Garfield's Halloween Adventure, and they had never seen it, and they fucking loved it. So yeah, Garfield and Friends was a great Saturday morning cartoon.
Oh, yes.
Very nice choice.
I just rewatched a bunch of episodes from that. I don't remember. I think it was on Tubi or one of those platforms.
Oh, cool. If it's up there, I want to revisit some of it.
Yeah, I think it was on Tubi is where it was. And it's a little hit and miss. They're missing a few seasons, a few episodes, because there was this one episode I remember. And I'm going to see if you remember this one, because I'm almost positive this is the one I couldn't remember. It was an episode where Garfield and John were fighting over something that happened. Like their house became filled with yogurt, and they ran out of the house. That's how the episode started, and they're sitting there arguing back and forth. Someone shows them, it's like, what happened? And they both had a tale, kind of, the old adage where someone has one side of the story, the other has the other side of the story, and it's never
Rashomon.
really
Yeah, Rashomon.
So it's that tale, but it's all about making yogurt with some weird shit.
I don't remember that one offhand, but now I'm going to go to Tubi and I'm going to rewatch the Rashomon episode of Garfield.
If you can find it, because that's the one I couldn't find, and I remember it so vividly.
Oh, you can't find it?
I couldn't find that one, but there were a bunch of others that I do remember, and I watched, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember this one. Like, let me try to pull another one out of my ass. John decides he wants to go on a diet, and then they find this, what are those, 30-minute infomercials where she's like, you can eat whatever you want. And then when they finally get the meals, they're like about this big. I'm about finger-sized.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what the hell is this? This is a ripoff. And then they go back, and it's just a whole thing.
Amazing.
But, yeah, I remember that one, and I was so excited to just kind of revisit it briefly, because I was like, I remember these when I was a kid, and yeah, it was so nice to go back to that. So awesome.
Just to let you know, because I just, as you were talking about it, You know, I have
Did
to
you look
look
it
on
up?
my phone here. Episode 4. It's season 3, episode 4. Twice Told Tales.
That's it.
Nice.
But I couldn't find it.
No joke. I'm literally, after we get off this call, I'm going to
Go
look at some
search.
Garfield and Friends. My girlfriend's
Love it.
out of town. It's Garfield and Friends time.
That's what we all do when our wives are not home.
They don't have to worry about us cheating. We're watching old TV shows.
Yeah,
Right.
she'd be like, "What are you doing? You're cheating on me." It's like, I ain't cheating. I'm watching Garfield and Nermal fight about some bullshit.
I'm getting shipped off to Abu Dhabi and shit. So, okay, so I want to ask you about this. I'm trying to balance out because we're probably going to bounce all over the place. I want to ask you: is there a story behind the bad techno moniker that you use on Twitter and on your link tree and all that? Because I know that it's a song that you wrote and it was the name of one of your albums early on.
Yes.
But is there more to it?
So, no, there is more to it, but not much more. It's,
Okay.
I just think it's a good name. I mean, like I got in early on all the social medias with Instagram, Twitter. I have a website, Bad Techno. It's just a good name. I just like the name. There's a ring to it. And I will preface all this by saying I don't necessarily dislike techno. I think that there's some great techno out there. In fact,
No, yeah, I agree.
one of my favorite songs is a song by Kim English called "Unspeakable Joy." So underrated. It's like it's one of the best techno songs ever made. So but to go back to the 90s, had just gotten out of high school. I was probably a freshman in college, and it was like sort of the dawn of the rave culture. And also in New York City, there was a lot of these clubs happening. Like the Limelight was there, the Sound Factory, Tunnel, Exit, all these clubs. And I used to go. I mean, I wasn't like a head or like a in the scene or anything, but I went to experience this stuff. And I was just a kid. I would take ecstasy or drink or smoke or whatever the fuck I was doing. And I went at least a dozen times. And it was weird because every time I went, I was sort of an outsider. I mean, every time I would try to get in, the bouncer would look at me and like look at my clothes and almost not let me in. But then my friends would be like, "He's with us, let him in." So I would see these reoccurring characters in every place. They would all look the same. I would like, "Oh shit, there's the Guido guy," or "Oh shit, there's the cheerleader girl," or "Oh shit, there's the hippie dude," or "Oh shit, there's the drag queen." Like there was always the same fucking characters popping up at every place, and they weren't the same people. They were just the same type. So I wrote that song, Bad Techno, based on the types that I saw at those clubs. And at that time I was doing like musical stand-up, so I'd perform that song, and it was pretty good. The crowds would like it. And then I made a techno version of it, and then it just became the title of the album, and through that, the social media monikers.
Since you said you like techno, I got to ask this one question.
Yeah.
And you may or may not know what it is. First of all, do you like video games? Are you a gamer at all?
I love video games, but I haven't been a hardcore. No, I was never a hardcore gamer, but I haven't been a proper gamer since Grand Theft Auto 4.
Okay.
So maybe 10 years. I don't know. I don't remember when that came out. My last major thing that I bought was the regular Xbox.
Okay, so it's been a while.
It's been a while. I still have it. It's right over here in my living room. I still play it. I pulled it up the other day.
If you ever get a chance, if you happen to stumble upon a newer console, because I don't think it'll be on the original Xbox, check out a game called Hotline Miami.
I know that game. I know that game.
The soundtrack alone.
And the reason I know it is because somebody, I used to be like one of the curators of the Troma Dance Film Festival, and some guy submitted these amazing short films that he made called like Hotline London, Hotline,
okay.
Paris, and they were just like recreations of the video game with the great music, that great driving music. And I think I picked Hotline London for one of the Troma Dance Film Festivals, so that's how I know that game.
Yeah, the music is what sucked me in, because every track was just banging. And part 2, I mean, they did a sequel and it had some pretty good tracks too, but the first one Like, I played it to completion because of that soundtrack. I was like,
it's
I'm
awesome.
in for this.
Yeah,
So,
I've been thinking about jumping in because now I could afford. Part of the reason I stopped playing video games was because I just couldn't afford a new console and new games for a while.
it's an expensive hobby.
I was a fucking intern at Troma. Shit, you can't afford shit. But now I could afford a Switch or something. So I think I'm gonna try and get either a Switch. What do you recommend? What's the jam?
Well, right now, obviously the biggest ones would be the Xbox or the PlayStation. PlayStation 5 is what I have. I would recommend it, but I also do have a Switch, which is a nice alternative. It's
With the Switch, you could get all the old games, right?
Switch, you can get a lot of these games, and it's more accessible. Trying to get a Switch right now, or not a Switch, but a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox is damn near impossible.
Okay.
So,
but the Switch, like I could go and play Super Mario Brothers 2 if I download it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want the access to the old also Super Nintendo, but the classic NES games and plus the new shit. I think the Switch is for me.
Yeah, if you can get the, I think it's the Nintendo Switch online service. They have Nintendo, Super Nintendo. I don't know if they have Game Boy yet. They even have Sega
64?
Genesis. 64. They've been adding
Sega
those.
Genesis. Forget it. Joe Montana football. I'm sold.
Yeah, they're adding new titles all the time. So Switch is probably your bag.
That's my bag. I'm telling my girlfriend Christmas. Forget it. That's what I want for Christmas.
Well, let's talk about Troma. You mentioned Troma. So you said you were an intern at Troma. How did you find your way there?
Well, okay. A slip of the tongue. Lloyd and Michael Hers, they like to call the people there enterprise observers or observer volunteers. You're not an intern because you're observing the company and you're learning as you go. Interns sometimes it's like, I don't want to say slave, but you don't get the benefits that you would if you were an observer or a volunteer, because if you're volunteering your time, it's more of a, anyway, I was an observer volunteer and more specifically an editing volunteer at Troma. That's how I started there. So I answered it like a tweet. It was one of the first weeks that I joined Twitter, and I answered a Lloyd Kaufman tweet because he was one of the first people I followed. And I saw that he was making Return to Nukem High Volume 1, and I saw that he said, if you edit, we are looking for volunteers for some of my make your own damn movie lessons or whatever the hell, something like that. And I answered. I interviewed with some guy at Troma, and they liked, I at that point I had done some little music videos in a public access show that I edited, and they liked it and said, yeah, you could do this. So I ended up editing 2 or 3 or 4 make your own damn movie lessons that went on the YouTube page with Lloyd, and he liked my work, and I just kept getting more and more stuff.
Shit, I'm gonna have to try that less. I mean, after we've seen what I've been trying here lately, I might have to reach out to Uncle Lloydie. He's somebody I'd like to meet.
He's great. I mean, he's really an amazing guy, and he's, 50 years, not only 50 years, I think Troma's 50th year is next year or the year after. So they might be at 48, but Lloyd Kaufman himself has been making feature films for 50 plus years.
He was supposed...
That's amazing.
Yeah, he was supposed to be, I think, at a convention down near where I live this past year when Joe Bob was down, and that's one of the reasons I went, but I also saw he was going to be there too, and I was like, holy shit, Joe Bob and Uncle Lloydie together, I gotta go. And obviously there were so many others, but those were the main 2. I was like, I have to go. But he wasn't, I never saw him. I don't know if he had to cancel for some reason or whatever, but it disappointed me that I got to miss him because he was one of the main reasons I wanted to go.
Yeah, he's around, and what I love about Lloyd is he obviously Troma gets a humongous table, and they put out all the DVDs, Blu-rays, and stuff. But Lloyd never charges for pictures or autographs unless it's he's forced to by the convention. So if you go and you buy a DVD or a Blu-ray, he'll sign it for free and take a picture for free. Or if you literally walk up to him with like a Back to the Future DVD, he'll sign that for free. He won't charge you. So I really respect that because it's more about, he's there as a personality promoting Troma. Of course, people are going to buy the Troma merch. So he already knows he's making, a couple of bucks. Give it away to free for people. And I think that's really cool of him.
Never forget where you come from.
Exactly.
Honestly. There's a lot of people that do forget where they come from. And we go to the convention circuit quite a bit. And we've met a lot of celebrities who, even when they have to pay some back to the convention, they'll just kind of look around and they'll be like, I'm going to sign this for you. Don't worry about it. So
That's the best, because what is a signature? I mean, really? You're going to charge me fucking $70 for your stupid ink? Like, I mean, I understand charging for the time. So if you get 2 or 3, 4 minutes with the person and talk, that's cool. But I don't know. I never understood the concept of signatures, to be honest.
I'm gonna give you 2 drastically different stories about my views about exactly that very thing. Okay, so one of the very first conventions I ever went to, I walked past the guy who was in the makeup for Grandpa for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, I love that movie. When I realized who the hell that was, I went into I locked up because like, holy shit, that's Grandpa. Holy shit!
And it was the real guy?
The real guy. The
Awesome.
guy that was in the fucking makeup and in the chair.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that's him. And this movie meant the world to me. And my wife was like, just go over there and say hi. Just go. And I was like, I don't know what to say. And she's like, just go. And she finally pushed me over there. And I couldn't look the dude in the eye. I just kept looking at the table and like rubbing it with my fingers. Just like, hey man, I'm a big fan. I really, the movie means a lot to me. And it's just amazing just to meet you and everything. And he just looked at me and says, do you want a picture? And I was like, yeah. No charge, no nothing. Just the coolest dude ever. Best picture I ever had.
Hell yeah.
He was so awesome. Conversely, Zach Galligan, and we've told this before, Zach, or Les, or whatever. Zach Galligan is the biggest dick I've ever met in my life. So.
No, Billy from fucking the Gremlins? Yes. Are you kidding me?
Twice I've met him, okay?
Oh,
twice.
No.
And I didn't have, because there's so many people. And I was just like, hey, man, I just want to meet you. And he's just like, you're going to, like, he's just waiting for me to buy something. I'm like, I just wanted to meet you because, you know, I grew up with you. And he's just like, eh. And then he loses interest because you're not buying anything. Twice that's happened. And I was like, wow, dude.
I know the problem. Somebody fed him after midnight.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the problem is.
You know, I did one convention so far, and hopefully I'll be able to do more. And to be honest, from the other side of it, sometimes there were 1 or 2 people who wouldn't stop fucking talking. I'm talking, they had no clue that you couldn't be rude to say, get out of my way, there's 7 people waiting, or, you know, it was like, so sometimes from the other side of it, like, motherfuckers don't stop talking. But, you know, to be like, I'm not talking to unless you buy my merch, that's
how it came off to me, because I'm not much of a, surprisingly, if you haven't noticed from here, I'm not a big talker when it comes to meeting people. And it was odd, you know, because it was like, hey, I'm a fan. I just want to meet you, say hello, shake your hand, and just be on my way. I'm sorry I'm not buying anything, but you mean a lot to me. I grew up with you.
Because you know what, though? That if he had talked to you, that conversation could have parlayed into a merch sale.
Exactly.
That's where he's mistaken, is that the conversation is the impetus for you to buy. So
right. And it's not that I didn't want to. It was just
his attitude up front.
Yeah, the second time around was kind of like, let's test this theory, because the last time I got this vibe, but let's check it out the second time. Second time it happened again. I was like, okay, he's a dick. So
and I was with Steven the second time that it happened. We took the kids to meet him, and he was a dick to the kids.
Oh, to the children?
I even bought an autograph from him. And he acted really shitty about getting a picture with my son. And I'm just like, really, dude? Really?
Jesus.
Like, what the hell?
That Billy, you know what? I'm glad they took Mogwai away from you.
And, you know, like, just a quick story, and then I actually have another question for you.
Sure.
But we met Robert Englund at several conventions. We've met him. I'm a huge fan of Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm a huge fan of Robert Englund. And we went up to meet him, and you have to get a ticket to stand in line to even get the chance to meet him, because he talks to the fans. If you bring something that he's never signed before, he'll shout you out to the people in the line and everything.
Amazing.
But
that's cool. I love it.
Yeah. But the thing that really caught me off his autographs, because he has people he has to pay that, he has a whole entourage with him that he has to pay and everything. His autographs were $100 a piece. I bought an autograph because I wanted one. And my son looks at me and he goes, "Can I get an autograph, Dad?" And he was like 6 at the time, I think. And I can't tell the kid no,
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I'm going to have to go over to the ATM and get out some more cash." And Robert Englund looks me dead in the face and goes, "Don't worry about it. I never get to sign stuff for kids." And he signed it for him, gave it to him, took a picture with us, no problem at all. That is the kind of stuff that makes me just adore him as an actor and as a person. Like, that's decent, to be that way.
Yeah, because if he had charged you for a child, that's almost as bad as making one of the kids in China make your merch, like the sweatshop shit. That's hard. So that's really sweet of him that he had already gotten your money and he gave you a bonus because your child needed to be. That's so nice.
And on the sweatshop thing, it's just easier to beat the kids here and make them build it. You don't have to ship it as far. Just saying. I'm not being serious. Anybody?
There's plenty of children in America.
Yeah, they need jobs. Now, speaking of the convention circuit, I know you said you've done a convention.
Yeah.
From the other end of things, who is someone, maybe somebody that is from a movie you watched in the 80s, or even somebody who's been in some more modern movies who you feel you would be a little starstruck if you met?
Interesting. Well, I can tell you an experience I had that was really nerve-wracking, and I couldn't believe it actually went off well. So I don't know what I got this idea for, because I was at Monster Mania when I was working at Troma, and I was running the booth. And it was one of those years, it was like either the right before Cobra Kai came out or the year Cobra Kai came out. And it was Daniel LaRusso,
Ralph
William
Macchio.
Zabka, it was Ralph Macchio, William Zabka, and Martin Kove.
Nice.
Were there. All three of them. And Karate Kid, I saw that shit in the theater, and it's like one of those movies I could watch anytime. And I was like, I gotta get a picture with these people. But I also didn't want to get a picture just me, so I went as Dolphin Man. I brought a dolphin mask. But on top of that, I also had this bandana. I have it in my room. It's from the 80s. It's one of the original Miyagi bandanas. It's in perfect shape. It's like one of my prized possessions. And so I waited online. I asked somebody to fill in for me. I waited online, and I got pictures with William Zabka, Martin Kove, and Ralph Macchio as Dolphin Man. On top of that, I brought my cousin Vinny DVD that my mother owned, and he signed all that. Like, he did everything. But this is the funny part, is like, so I'm like, do you mind? I said to him beforehand, I was like, do you mind if I wear a dolphin mask in our picture? And he's like, no, that's great, sure. So I'm like, okay, great. So I put the dolphin mask on, and I'm like, do you mind if I put the Karate Kid headband over? And he's like, no, sure, go ahead. So I do it, and all of a sudden, like, I drop it, it falls to the floor. I'm like, oh fuck. And in my mind, I'm going, he's just gonna tell me to move on. And I could barely see. So there's like the Dolphin Man hole is like just like one eye. And I look down and I see Ralph Macchio bending over to pick up the thing, and he puts it on my head, adjusts it, fix it, and then takes the picture. So I have this like series of pictures with like me like talking to him as Dolphin Man, the thing's on the floor, he picks it up and he puts it on my head. So
that is wonderful.
It was such a great experience, because like, hey, as what's his name, Zach Gaffigan, he would have been like, get the fuck out of here,
Like, so, get off of this.
Yeah, so that was like a really cool convention experience where I was like so nervous to do it, and it was stupid. I don't know why. I was just like in my Troma mode, and I was doing a lot of Dolphin Man stuff at the time, and I just didn't want to be me as, I'm like, oh, it's me, but I'll always have that Dolphin Man picture.
Yeah.
With Ralph Macchio literally putting the Karate Kid headband on Dolphin Man. So to answer your question, that was the experience.
That is wonderful.
Yeah. And he wasn't that expensive. His all their autographs all together was pretty reasonable.
I'm sure Zach Galligan was pretty expensive, son of a bitch.
I think it was like $60.
Oh, he was 60?
I think he was like $60 or something like that. The girl from Gremlins, though, I've met
Phoebe
her.
Cates?
Yes, I've met her a few times. Sweetest woman you'd ever meet.
I would hope so, because
She's actually super sweet.
I had such a crush on her.
Yeah, my I don't want to talk out of school, but my girlfriend knows her because Phoebe Cates owns a boutique in New York City, and
That's right.
She knows Phoebe Cates knows my girlfriend's mother, just friendly through the neighborhood, and then they go in, and she said she's one of the nicest people she's ever met, and that's really heartwarming to know, because not all celebrities are garbage.
Oh yeah, that's so nice.
Steven, there's your hookup. You can call in a favor.
There you go.
I'm so glad to know that one little detail, because I would hate to know something terrible about that woman.
Nah.
So, all right.
I wish she would make a comeback. She's a great actress.
I know.
Yes, she is.
You ever see the movie? This is one of the most underrated movies ever. It's I Love You to Death. Do you remember this movie? And it's Lawrence Kasdan wrote it for sure.
Yes.
And it's Kevin Kline is the star.
Yes.
Keanu Reeves is in it. William Hurt, River Phoenix before he died.
Yeah.
Tracy Ullman, Phoebe Cates. Fucking stellar cast. Great comedy, like underrated. Nobody talks about that movie anymore. So hopefully the listeners of your podcast, I know it's not horror, but it is kind of horror. It's like they try to kill the husband because he's a cheating fuck. It's such an underrated movie. And Lawrence Kasdan, that's a pedigree from the Indiana Jones and Empire Strikes Back. So you got to watch that movie. It's so underrated.
There you go, Ramblers. You got an assignment. Go look that movie up. It's not a horror movie, but it's fine.
It's got kill. It's got death, and it's a dark comedy that's about almost murdering somebody.
Hey,
dark comedy. That was
we talk about a lot of those.
We talked about that sort of.
There you go. Yeah, and Phoebe Cates looks great in it.
Anyway, so I want to talk about your music, because I was looking through your discography, thanks to your Linktree, because that simplified so much crap.
Awesome.
Looking through...
So I was worried because the other day, somebody who's very close to me is like, how do I find your work? I'm like, there's a fucking Linktree. Are you stupid? Like, it's there. It's all there. Everything's there. Like, you can't miss it. I'm sorry. Yeah. I've tried very hard to make it simple, and people make it more complicated.
We've talked about we've actually got a Linktree for this podcast. I've had to set it up for other stuff, because I got to thinking, I was like, this is actually kind of easy. You just tell people to go look up the Linktree, and then boom, there it is.
You could have, so the way that I set up my Linktree, not to get too detailed, is that I have multiple Linktrees from any new thing that I do. So say that I have, I have my main Linktree, and then I have a portal to a movie Linktree and a podcast Linktree or music. And you can go infinitely into it so that you can see the overview of all the things that I've ever done. So to you guys or any artists out there, Linktree is a great tool to put up your whole thing as a fully formed portfolio. And it's free.
So I definitely want to point everyone to his Linktree. We'll probably put that in the show links down below, so you can go look up everything.
It's in the bio of all my social media at
That's
Bad
right.
Techno on Twitter or Instagram or at badtechno.com. It's all there.
As I discovered a lot of that, obviously I was kind of introduced to you via the drive-in, and then from that I kind of found a lot of your older albums. Listen to that stuff, not just from the show, but your other stuff.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no.
Some of it's not so great.
It's okay. So I was curious to hear tracks that were not associated with the drive-in. I wanted to hear your original music that wasn't connected to that. So I have to say, with all sincerity, I've listened to most of No Offense, None Taken.
Great.
Regularly.
Oh.
Since I listened to it.
Good. Thank you.
And I have to say that my favorite tracks, it's a toss-up between Nowhere and Pantyhose.
Wow.
And
holy shit. The two that I was like the most unsure about on that record.
Pantyhose, I think, inches it out. Because I just love the riff you've got going.
Finally.
I love the hook.
Look, okay, so the two ones that I was so unsure about, and I was like, all right, let me put on another, like, more funny or less... Because those two songs to me are the most lo-fi on the record. They're the least polished. They're also kind of aggressive. Nowhere is a very depressing song. that I wrote about if I do, and I wrote it a while ago. If I pursue this career as an artist and I die without ever having done anything of note, that this is the final song that hopefully somebody would find and be like, oh, he's talking about himself and being a piece of shit and a horrible artist. It's a depressing song, but I put it on there because it was just like, it was fully formed and I really felt strongly about it. And then Pantyhose, thank you for talking about the riff, because that riff, I thought it was such a good, fun, like,
it is
aggressive riff. So my friend Paul, I won't say his full name because he's a teacher. We don't want to get him fired, but he did the gang vocals on that with me, and he said, I really like this song, but it makes me feel bad singing it because I feel like it's just me and you yelling at somebody and being mean. And I said, that's the whole point. It's all about, like, these fucking degenerate pieces of shit in New York or New Jersey telling some guy, like, you gotta do this thing for us,
Yeah.
You gotta be a robber. That's why it's pantyhose, because like when you put the pantyhose over your head, if you're a robber, so you can't see your face. So I'm so happy that you picked those two songs of all of those on the record, because nobody has ever mentioned those songs since it came out.
I was curious because those are the ones that really stuck with me. I mean, even right now as we're talking about them, I can hear the theme just it's in my head. I'm just like, yes. And I listen to them. I love them. They stuck with me. So no,
and on top of it, what elevated the Pantyhose, in my opinion, because I'm a big fan of Ween, right? And Ween, they started as a lo-fi, like, home recording sort of thing, and originally Ship to Shore Phonoco, who put out this record, it was supposed to be a studio record, and then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be my first proper studio release, which I'm still working on. But they said, you know what? It's the pandemic. You're home and you have all this material. Why don't you put together the best of your home recorded stuff and we'll put it out? I said, yeah, all right. That sounds good, because I had a lot of stuff that was just left over the years. And that was like what it was. It became this like lo-fi home recorded odyssey that almost is like the culmination of all of my home recording from 1999 through whatever it was, 2020.
Oh,
yeah. So it, like, the next record that I put out, other than the Joe Bob stuff, my solo or my band, it's going to be a proper studio record finally. But that, I feel, is it's a pretty interesting record, because there's a lot of choices that you wouldn't normally make on a real record. I made some really weird mixing choices on purpose.
Yeah.
And I feel like, a band like Ween or like Ariel Pink back in the day, they did that shit too. So I was highly inspired by that.
No, it definitely stands out to me, because it's one of those records that you kind of feel like there's kind of like this garage grunge kind of thing going on with it, but it has an element that just kind of elevates it just a little bit. You're just like, I love what I'm hearing. So yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah, finally, some motherfucker understands.
Speaking of which, I mean, since you mentioned Ween, I mean, they might be obscure to some people who are listening, and I hope that there are some people who are listening that love Ween, who remember Ween. Did you happen to see, I'm going way off topic, South Park's 25th anniversary concert? Ween was there with Primus. And Rush, and I was like, that's freaking awesome. Just
it was incredible. I've
Yeah.
seen Ween live probably 25 times now, and
Damn.
if I was able to, I would have flown out and gone to that concert. I mean, South Park, Primus, and Ween is like the exact tastes of that's right in my wheelhouse. So it's unfortunately I couldn't see it, but thankfully they put it up like a week later.
Yeah. What about that venue? I've never seen such a venue. I would love
Red Rock?
to go to that.
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, another band that they play there all the time. I've seen Fish. Don't hold this against me, but I've seen Fish probably over 90 times now. I haven't really lost count. Yeah, since 1997 I've seen them. And they play there all the time. So one day I will be able to go to that venue. But that whole rock wall, right? It's so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And no judgments. I'm sure I'll listen to some stuff. Trust me, I've had people listen to my playlist and they're just like, how did you go from that to that? And I'm just like, hey, Doesn't
Been
matter.
there.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Every moment we're having a different emotion. I
It's all
mean,
good.
yeah, who cares?
Now, I have to say thank you to you as well because of a wonderful song that the album that I found it on was an album from 2014.
Oh, now we're going. See, this is where I was starting to get a little worried because I leave all my
You-
shit up on purpose, and
You,
not all of it's good. Not all of it's good.
Well, you gave me a song that I'm probably going to send to a few people. I absolutely love it. It's simply titled "Douchebag."
Yes. Okay. Oh,
I
see,
love that fucking song.
yes. So now, douchebag. That's a really old song. So it's even older than 2014. I uploaded it to Bandcamp in 2014.
Mhm.
I probably wrote that song in 2003 or something, and it was about a real guy who fucking was just a fucking cocksucking douchebag who just like would not be cool. Like no matter what I tried to do, and I'm not a violent person, but this guy, and it was like a jealousy thing, it was something wrong with this guy mentally, but also not mentally challenged. He was just a fucking douchebag. So I wrote this
Yeah.
song about him, and I recorded it much later. And now you're saying that the only other time somebody else mentioned it to me, it was like a long time ago, like 10 years ago. So
I absolutely loved it today, and I was like, "There's a few people that I would love to say these things to." And one of my favorite parts in the song is when you're singing about "You hope he dies while he's on vacation." I love it,
and that's true. He so it was like a summer. It was a weird summer where there was like 50 people always hanging around each other in like different bars, and it was like a whole scene and musical comedy bands, all this stuff. And this guy would come around just fucking constantly ruin the days. So he went away on vacation for a week. It was the best shit ever. So I said, I hope you die when you're gone on vacation,
Oh,
Wow, douchebag. Yeah, no, that's so that record, Bad Techno, that's what that's from.
Yeah.
And that record is when I've started to actually understand how to start to really mix music and get performances and overdub and get actual people to play on my records and stuff instead of just being me or a drum machine or whatever. And I feel like Bad Techno is the first record that is the bridge between my old bad garbage music to my Joe Bob stuff. It's like the middle point where it's like, oh, okay, this is the point where he started to evolve a little bit.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so I got a question for you based on that, because around 2013, 2014, but you were still kind of actively working. Like you said, that song was something you wrote in 2003. So there was a 10-year gap, hypothetically. Was there a moment, like, were you actively trying to reach this goal to be like a songwriter, to do an album, to do film, or was it just something that was kind of there and you was like, I'll get to it eventually? Or were you always trying to search for it, and then you were just looking for that break? You were looking for that moment that just kind of clicked.
Yeah, like I had a really odd experience in LA. I moved out to LA to make movies. That was my goal. But and that was like 2002. So but while I was in LA, I had a nebulous experience. It wasn't necessarily I was like reaching for a goal of music. I was just doing music because I learned how to I was at that time it was DV cams.
Yeah.
And I would record all the different parts on a DV cam and then put it in Final Cut, all the different pieces, and learn that I could mix it and then export a WAV file. So that was like the first step, but I never was like pursuing music. I was always more pursuing screenwriting, or like I did some short movies and stuff like that. But the music was always there almost as like a therapy and a catharsis. And I, every once in a while I would do musical stand-up or something, but it was not a goal. It was weird. So this is a thing, is like, to any aspiring artist out there, whatever the thing is that you're doing that comes the most effortless to you is probably the thing that you should pursue, because screenwriting is goddamn hard. Making movies is fucking hard. And it's unless you have a lot of money, whatever. But I made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of home recorded tracks, and I just never put two and two together that maybe I should pursue this, other than the fact that I did start one small band in LA, and we had like a 6-month run, and it was pretty good. And then the bass player got upset. He was actually a death metal musician in Brazil, and he said, I gotta leave this band because I'll never be respected again in Brazil if they hear that I'm singing songs about cheeseburgers and vagina. So the band broke up. he couldn't handle songs like Barbecue Maniac, but whatever. So but then just when I got to Troma, luckily I kept just releasing these EPs. I would put them out on Bandcamp, whatever, just for myself, just like get them out there and put them out on my Facebook page and my Twitter. And a guy who worked there, Matt Mangiarides, who eventually went on to executive produce The Last Drive-In.
Mhm.
He had listened to some of my music and he liked it. So he knew that Lloyd Kaufman was planning a scene in Return to Newcomb High, where Lloyd was going to tuck his penis and reenact the scene from Silence of the Lambs, Goodbye Horses.
Yeah.
So they needed a knockoff of Goodbye Horses. So Matt said, can you take a stab at a knockoff? I said, absolutely, I can do that. And I did, and it got accepted. So that was like all that like secret music making built up to that moment. And so I succeeded in that moment. I got it in the movie, and it's a really funny scene, and it's a good knockoff. And then Matt always remembered, oh, John makes music, blah, blah, blah. So then when it came time for The Last Drive-In, I submitted a demo and it got accepted. So it was just like, I don't know. I don't know why I went like that long route of like doing movies, and then always ignoring the music part of it. So
I mean, I was trying to find your specific talent, because like early on as a kid, I'll say this, as a kid, I always had this aspiration. I was like, I'm going to be an actor. That's what I'm going to do. And I never knew how it was going to be to get there. It was just like, this is what I'm going to do. And that's it. And as kind of like you said, you mentioned the DV recordings, the DV cameras. That's exactly where I started. 2004. I'm sitting
awesome.
there filming little shorts throughout all of 2004. I actually have a library of shorts that I did for 2004, all on DV. And I was like, this is going to be the way I get in. And then,
hell yeah,
you know, it is what it is. I'm not gonna lie, but it was a learning experience. But the one thing I learned out of that is I had an editing skill I didn't even realize, because I had a buddy of mine who was a huge film file, went to film school, did all that stuff. He was one of those, I love him to death, but he's one of those pretentious film people. Who's like, you gotta like Kubrick, and you gotta like whoever,
blah blah blah. Yeah.
But again, he's a great guy. But like, I did this one short film of mine, and he looked at it and was like, you've got some pretty good editing skills. And I was like, you think so? He's like, yeah. He's like, would you take a look at this? And he just handed me something. He said, try it, see what you can do with it. So I just took one scene and went pop, 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 pop. Here you go. And he's like, shit, dude, take the whole thing. Just go edit it. And I was like, all right.
There you go.
And it wasn't anything I was thinking of. It was just the skill that I had that I didn't know I had. Because I'm over here thinking I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I could do all this other stuff. But it was just the editing was apparently something I was good at, and I didn't even know it.
See, that's the thing. That's why it's good to sort of test all the skills. Like, try everything. If you're an aspiring artist, see what it's like to just write a song, see what it's like, write a poem, draw a picture, make a movie, do all this shit, and see like if something pops for another person, then you go, oh, maybe that's the one I should chase after.
Exactly. So eventually I think you'll find your spot where you need to be within that group. I mean, we've seen a lot of child actors turn into producers, directors, and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's a natural progression. You got to find your footing within the industry, I think. And, as much as I would love to be in front of the camera, I think my place is behind it, but it's fine. I'm okay with it.
It's a tough goddamn industry. I mean,
it is.
I say this to people, and like, people don't want to hear others complain when they're in the entertainment industry about how hard it is, but it really is fucking hard. It's just the logistics alone of making a single movie. It's an amazing feat when any movie gets made, good or bad.
Yeah.
Like, that's why sometimes disparaging like these shitty movies, it's like, do you know how much fucking work these people did? Like,
oh, yeah.
Who cares that it sucks? It's like, give him a round of applause for finishing it. You know how many
Yeah.
unmade movies there are? Billions, I'm sure.
2017, I produced my second season of a short form sitcom that I directed, wrote, edited all myself. By the end of 2017, I was exhausted mentally.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I was like, this, oh my God. And I have not done it since. For at least that series, because it was just like, oh my God, I've got to have help. And I've said that from that point on. It's like, I've got to have help.
Gotta
I
have
can't
help.
do that
And then
alone.
when you have help, you're waking up early, wrangling people, making sure they're doing something. They don't want to do it. They had a bad day. They have diarrhea. Whatever the fuck is happening in other people's life, it affects the course of the seed idea that you had, like when you were sitting alone. So all these things, you have to manage them, and it's all about time management, people management, and it's really, really rough. And anybody who's like a producer, that's a really hard job. It's really hard because you have to not only please the money people, whoever's giving you the money, you then have to please the talent who are very eccentric. You have to please the crew who all they want to do is eat and shit. It's like really hard. It's really hard.
See, I gotta admit, I'm gonna praise you, Lester, and then you can speak because I know you got something to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna praise you, so just hang on a second.
I'm listening, all ears.
So when, like, I had a lot of things. Les will attest to this. I'm a busy man. I'm a busy man. I always got plates spinning and stuff like that. So he came to me with this idea of this podcast, and my one requisite that I had, it was just like I can record it, I can help, put all this stuff together, but when it comes down to it, I said, I need somebody to edit because I've got other things on the fire. I said, I got all this other stuff. I said, if you can handle that, then we're good. But, that's kind of my prerequisite for this whole thing. And he's been on point. This is probably one of the few people that I've had on my team who helped me and have not been like, work, because I've had other co-hosts, other people who want, it's like they want to be in on it, but when it comes to work, it's like, I can't do it, and it's like, but I'm only one human being. I can't do everything.
No, you can't. And that's the thing is sometimes you get, and this is from every level of production that I've ever been on, you get those people who waltz in thinking that they're going to be the director for some reason, and they're just a PA or whatever the hell they are. It's like, no. You're in this moment now with us on this project, and you agreed to do this role, this singular role. Don't stray from the track. Do your job, get it over with, and then the next projects that we do, or anybody does, maybe they'll hire you to be a director, or maybe you hire us, or whatever. But there's so many people who, like, in the middle of a project have like a brain fart. Is like, I'm too good for this, or whatever. I totally disagree with that. It's like I'm of the mindset that, especially in the Troma sort of system, finish that shit hook or by crook, because if you don't, you wasted your goddamn time.
Oh, if I had that opportunity, I would be so humble. I would be, yeah, whatever you want, sir. Whatever you want. Yep, here it is, done.
Look, I don't know, where do you live?
I live in Tennessee, and probably half the problem why I can't get to Troma.
I can hook you up with a guy who just made Curse of the Were-Deer. He's probably doing some more stuff, and if you like to do like fucking crazy shit, he just made. His name is Ben Johnson. I did a couple of songs for it. Curse of the Were-Deer. It's one of the new Troma movies coming out. He does all sorts of shit. Okay. And he worked on #Shakespeare's Shitstorm, which is the movie I produced for Troma. And him and the guys who all lived in this like crazy house during the production formed a production company called Shit House Productions. And now they're like a legitimate thing making movies. So he's in Tennessee. I'll hook you up with him. He's a great guy. I mean, he worked on Citizen Toxie, like the guy.
No shit.
Yeah. He's legit. So yeah.
And in all honesty, this show was created because of Steven and I meeting. We met at my wedding. Like he said previously, his wife and I went to high school together. Right. That was the first time I met him. I got married back in 2020 on Halloween.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And Steven and I hit it off really well. It was like we knew each other for years. I do writing in my spare time. Steven does a lot of writing as well as all the other crazy things that he does. And I had him look at some work of mine, give me some pointers on it. He had me look at some stuff of his, because that's my thing. I've always been an idea guy, I guess you
Right.
could say.
Sure.
And we just kind of hit it off. And like he said, I came to him and I was like, I've been wanting to do a podcast about horror movies and horror subjects and just off the wall stuff. It doesn't even have, it can be, the weirdest thing ever. Like, who's had the best kill in a horror movie, or, how strong would Jason Voorhees have to be to punch somebody's head off? Random things.
Yeah.
And this show got created so we could discuss some of our own ideas. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to any of the previous episodes or anything, but if you ever have some spare time,
I will. I absolutely will.
Yeah,
I mean, this year has been all fucked up for me. No offense, none taken.
I can imagine.
But no, it's like the Jamboree, Joe Bob Jamboree, the last drive-in. I'm working on my own. I just wrote my own feature that I'm going to shoot. So it's just been so fucked up. I mean, I don't even listen to music anymore, which is really strange.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I mean, we get our outlet here, and to me, this never feels like work.
Yeah.
Even editing it doesn't feel like work, because I'll listen back to this conversation when I edit, and I'll have some laughs about things that we've already laughed about.
Yeah.
But
so not to get too inside, but when you're editing, because I edited a podcast at one point, and how do you deal with the fact that there's like bleed over from the headphones and shit like that? That fucking drove me mad to the point where I quit. I couldn't do it anymore.
Normally, I just make some little adjustments in the audio, and like your portion of the conversation, I'll rip off of this track that we're recording here. And then Steven and I are recording separate tracks right now, so I'll just line them all up. If I don't like the way something sounds, I'll just mute it or I'll turn it down.
But if you like say that your headphones are way too loud and you're hearing me talk right now and then it's like echoing and shit. What I never understood how to because then you have to cut every goddamn time that anybody speaks.
That sounds like a setting problem.
And as bad as it sounds, that's honestly what I have to do some of the time.
Oh, it sucks. It sucks.
I've gotten to the point where I've adjusted my mic, and I've gotten things, that pre-set up all squared away. Yeah. And I'm no editing genius or anything by that means, but the whole goal of this show was to make people feel like they were, maybe sitting at the bar with us.
Hell yeah.
Having a conversation. Because I'm a big picture kind of guy.
Sure.
And I've always thought it would be awesome. There used to be a network on, it was called G4 TV. They used to talk about comic books, video games, all that stuff. They had all these separate shows, and then they all came together, and they all discussed everything. Like, people from the different shows were all together. And I've always told Steven from day one, I said, it would be so awesome if we actually could record, or, find someone to record a show. And I would love to do like a variety show, sort of do what they do on The Last Drive-In, talk about movies.
Yeah.
But also talk about comics, talk about just horror news, maybe do like a Mythbusters type deal, but make it horror themed. I think that's the thing. You have to keep pushing forward with that stuff, But,
I can't say anything right now, but there's somebody has mentioned that type of show, so get on it. You know what I mean?
Jump on it now.
I wish someone over at Shudder would just be like, we've been listening to these guys talk a little bit. Maybe we should give them a call. Yeah, and the biggest thing that slows Steven and I down is he lives in Tennessee. I live in Ohio. So that kind of puts a damper on things. But there's a little town, it's called Bellefontaine. It's in between basically Columbus and Dayton.
Okay.
In between that area.
Oh yeah, I went to Columbus last October for the Nightmares Film Festival. It was awesome.
We actually
go there.
We actually were talking about submitting. We have an idea for a short film that we want to submit to one of the festivals. We've got to get it pieced together the rest of the way and actually recorded. But yeah, as far as
Nightmares Film Festival is a great fucking festival, and it's right by you. It's like the can of the Midwest or whatever. I don't know if the Ohio is actually the Midwest. This is like more east-west. It's like
Kinda.
It's in that no man's land.
Yeah.
Just call it cornfield country.
Yeah, but if you know what would be great if you have time, like it's happening this October, go there and start to meet some people, because all those people are making stuff. I made connections there that I'm still in touch with, that I'm doing something with.
Yeah.
And it's just like everybody chills, everybody's like so fucking cool, and they're all doing the same shit that you're doing. So
Yeah, and we honestly, like I said, like I've always been, I would love for the Horror Ramblings podcast to exist, and then have a Horror Ramblings show as well, where we do all kinds of things, talk about any and everything that you can think of horror related, just like we do now. But have a little bit more blood and guts. Maybe watch some cheesy old movies like they do on The Last Drive-In. Maybe talk about horror comics, video games, just all dedicated to horror. That's one thing about The Last Drive-In that I absolutely love. And something that you, like, whenever we post anything up about the podcast, we catch you liking it and everything, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the horror community is a very misunderstood community in a lot of ways, and it kills me because there's so many sweet people. I mean, you've been sitting here talking with us. You've even talked about people that we could meet and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
people don't
just
see
wait
that
until
side of it all the time.
after we're not on the air. I'll give you like 7 emails that you could email, and you could get all kinds of people on your show. I have a few people that you could probably get on the show that would be awesome. But like that's the thing, is like if you guys just keep doing it and you keep meeting people, and eventually you'll get to a point where you can even start to a Patreon and do like special shit. Like there's so many options right now as far as the internet is concerned, that why not just try it? Because you never know, you might hit the right niche, and then all of a sudden you've got your fan base, and then you can make a couple of bucks off of that. And even if you're just paying your mortgage for you doesn't have to support your entire life, but if you're just like a little bill, like, or even just your internet bill, like that's fucking crazy, right?
No, you're right on. I mean, that's actually something that that mentality, just try. Because I've been working these basic 9-to-5 jobs for so long, and it's just every time I see an opportunity, I'm like, just try. Especially if it's something more in line with what I want to do versus what I'm qualified to do. And eventually, like, I do actually have a freelance job with Joe Blow Media.
Oh,
like,
good.
I actually edit some of their face-off videos for YouTube.
Yeah.
So once I got that, I was like, holy shit. I finally got a job doing editing for something that I enjoy. And it's like you said, it's not paying the bills like left and right, but I mean, it's something.
Yeah.
It's a little something extra.
Honestly, in the last like 2 years or 3 years, I started to think about how hard I've worked for other people. And all of it's been striving to get to a point, like a goal, like, oh, one day I'll be self-sufficient, one day, blah, blah, blah. But then I started to realize I'm working so hard for other people, I haven't really worked that hard for myself.
Yeah.
So think about how successful you could possibly be if you work as hard for yourself as you do for other people. And you know what? It's going to be a bitch that's at certain points, you're going to have to do it simultaneously. And I'm not saying, like, I don't always agree with like the grind life. There's like that rise and grind. No, fuck that. But take time to work on your job where it monetarily satisfies you, and then take time to work on yourself and work as hard for you as you can for other people. And it starts to show. Things start to open up, and it's all there. And you guys seem to be on the right path. So I would definitely say to keep going.
Hey, we got you on the show, and that's a win. So.
And just wait until I give you those fucking emails.
Now, I have this is kind of a random question, but we were with us talking about the horror community and working hard and things upcoming. There's a lot of new horror films that are coming out. I'm sure you've caught wind of some of them. Is there anything in particular that you're really excited for?
So brand new, I mean, I haven't seen anything brand new in a long time. And by long time, I mean like a year. But what's coming up that I'm excited about, I'm totally curious about Halloween Ends. I saw Halloween Kills in the theater, and it wasn't as bad as people said. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't as bad. It was like kind of entertaining, and like, look, hey, yeah, sure, you got critiques, and you could have done it differently yourself or whatever. But I thought there's some fucking that the gay couple that were living in Michael Myers' home, that was fucking brilliant. Like there was so many brilliant things about that movie. So I think that the way that Halloween, the whatever reboot, remake, reimagining, whatever the hell the one in 2018 was,
whatever it is,
then moving on to Halloween Kills, which is a totally bizarre movie. I think Halloween Ends is going to be something to behold. I'm really excited. For better or worse, I can't wait for the discourse and how the people on horror Twitter are like, it sucks, it's good, it's the best. Like that's part of the fun, is like all the conversation that comes along with it. So Halloween Ends, I'm going to the theater for that new Hellraiser. Shit,
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah,
I'm all in. I got Hulu. I'm all in on that stuff. I've seen every Hellraiser, even the bad ones. I don't care. I love it, even if it's trash. So hopefully they can make a cool thing. What else is coming out? Mention some stuff coming out? I'll let you know if I don't remember.
I know there's a new Scream coming out. That's a little ways
fuck
away.
Scream. You know what? Fucking Scream 5 was one of the worst theatrical experiences I've ever had.
I have to ask you this real quick, because Steven and I actually talked about this on another show. We talked about Scream and the whole franchise, and I'll say this again if people listening haven't seen it yet. Dewey dies. Let's just get that out of the way.
And he was the only good part. I thought fucking David Arquette nailed it. His story was great. The whole movie should have been fucking Dewey's movie. Like, fuck the new characters. Fuck Sydney, and they did Sydney and Courtney Cox bad because they gave him shit to do. Dewey was the meat potatoes of that movie, and they didn't go all the way with him.
Now, when we were discussing the fourth film, because we had done a podcast where we talked about the fourth films in a franchise, and we got to discussing it, and we talked about Dewey's death in Scream 5 was a waste. It really was. Because
it was a waste, but I liked the way it was done, like him saying like it was an honor to kill, like that's really cool. But it could have been like Dewey should have been essentially like the main character. Give Dewey his own Scream movie, Well, and we deserves it,
right? And we kind of talked about in the fourth movie how much of a difference it would have made if Dewey would have been killed off in the fourth movie, because he still had, by the time Scream 5 turned around, he was a shadow of his former self. Dewey's a likable character, but he really was a shadow of his former self in the fifth one. In the fourth one, I think the death would have been even more heartbreaking. I think it would have had a little more meaning.
It's true.
I don't know what your thoughts are, but
no, it's a good idea if you put the emotional weight of the death in the fifth one in the fourth one. It could have been honestly a classic, because that's something that was missing in the fourth one, was like the real stakes. Yeah, I feel like that's part of the shit of the Scream movies, is like this trio. Who cares? Like, they shouldn't have survived all these movies. Like, the whole fun of these movies is like killing these people off. The first one the first one begins with the fact that Drew Barrymore's killed right off the bat. So these movies should have evolved with, you never know who's going to die next. That's the whole fun of these movies. So you keep all of them alive, and in the fifth one, they're all on phones. They don't even barely see each other in person. Like, that was such a waste. I hated fucking.
And they made amateur mistakes compared to all the movies they've been through. They made amateur mistakes. I kind of feel that way, but that's just me.
Yeah, and then the killers, they were so boring. Like, it's the same shit as the other one. Like, we're mad because we're in the chat rooms. No, fuck that. It's like so. Kevin Smith did that with with the Jay and Silent Bob back in the day with the chat room shit. That's done. Yeah. So it should have, in my opinion, this is what they should have done in Scream 5, is that every single character that you see die, it should have been like an April Fool's, you know how everybody pretends to die. Yeah. And then it turns out that every single person that you've seen die, except for the legacy characters, has been a fake death, and they're all the cult of Scream heads.
That would be cool.
So, and Scream heads, I gotta give credit to my friend Jimmy Adamson. He started a Twitter war when he called Scream fans Scream heads. But if it had all been a fake movie type gore, and then they all rise up, put on the Scream mask, and kill the original fucking legacy characters, or try to. That's the Scream movie I want to see.
Hell yeah.
Anyway.
I could get behind that.
That'll be Scream 6 you watch.
Well, Scream 6, the only reason now they drew me back in is because it's going to be set in New York. And hopefully they don't do a pull a Jason Takes Manhattan where it's like no New York footage.
Yeah,
hopefully, right? I want to see Ghostface running through subway systems and, through fucking Times Square. I want to see the whole New York thing. I want to see a sequence in Madison Square Garden. So if they go that big with it, I'm all the way in. Give me a real New York Scream movie.
I'm all for it.
What about the next season of Chucky? Because we've talked about Chucky quite a bit.
Loved last Halloween season. I've loved watching the premiere of Chucky and then following it up until its conclusion. I thought it was great. I really did. Nice. And I've always been a fan of the Chucky movies, even the more goofy stuff. So
yeah,
me and my wife actually just rewatched all of it. Like we had. If you go back a few episodes, I had her on and we just kind of lamented because we'd gotten into some weird conversation because he was on vacation and I was trying to sit there and think of an idea for an episode. It's like, what am I going to do to kind of fill the gap? And she and I just started talking about Child's Play for some odd reason. I was like, hold that thought. And I grabbed all the shit and I was like, here, take a microphone and then go. And then we just turned it into an episode of her just loving Child's Play, and then after we got done, it was like, you know what, Child's Play? Because we got the Shout Factory 4Ks and shit like that.
Cool.
So it was just like, yeah, let's rewatch all this. So we went from first to the end of season 1 of Chucky, and
awesome.
we're caught up. So we're ready to go.
It's good stuff. That one scene I've loved in Chucky when he pushes the woman out of the hospital window. Yeah. That was like, that brought it to such a great level because it's like so psychopathic and it's like so subversive. The whole fucking show is great, and the fact that they have like 2 underage boys in a relationship, it's so awesome. Like it's such a weird choice to like go that far, but it's working. So I hope that they go further.
Yeah, the one thing that we kind of noted is something that another podcast I listened to had kind of mentioned is how consistent the story is. Like there's never really a moment in the series from beginning to end that you can sit there and say, well, I mean, obviously there might be a plot hole or two, but nothing so egregious like from Jason Takes Manhattan to Jason Goes to Hell, where you're like, well, how the fuck did that happen? It's everything is from point A to point B, and you're just like, I can follow this.
Yeah.
And so it's still continuous for what, 30 years? So, I mean, that's amazing.
And what's his name? Don Mancini, right? I think his name. He's been the writer on every single one, or a co-writer. Todd Holland. The guy, Tom Holland. He did the Fright Night. So the first one got his signature on it.
Yeah.
But the fact that this one guy has been basically the lead on the franchise all that time, I think that more franchises need to do that. Not every franchise benefits from a sole leader, but some would. So I think that Child's Play is a good, and the fact that he tried different genres, different things, different tropes, different zeitgeists. He tried to. I love that. So
I think
more Chucky.
Even to the point where Sean Cunningham could be considered the arbiter of Friday the 13th. He was never there the entire time, or at least never really guiding it like Don Mancini was. Don Mancini loved Chucky. This was his baby, and he was making sure it was taken care of from beginning to end. So, yeah, I absolutely agree. That's what a lot of these franchises need, someone who's going to guide it where it needs to go.
Well, you mentioned it's John Cunningham. That's exciting that supposedly they've come to terms that there will be a new Friday the 13th. I'm all aboard. You give me the worst Friday the 13th movie next year on a Friday the 13th. I'm in the goddamn theater. I don't care if it's shit. I'm there. So
I mean, there's nothing to it. You give me hockey mask, give me boobs, you give me blood, I'm there.
And it's going to be the 13th one. So how could you not? Oh shit. It's going to be so good.
I'm still waiting for my final Nightmare on Elm Street film. Robert Englund's He's 75. Nightmare on Elm Street. Come on.
Nightmare on Elm Street could still, it still has legs. And I think that they've pulled, in my opinion, I don't know any of the inside shit because I'm nobody, but I feel like they've pulled back so that when Freddy returns, it's going to be the real deal. I mean, no matter what happens, if it's Robert Englund for one final go or a recasting, they're not going to fuck it up this time. Somebody's going to do it right.
If I
it's actually how. Oh, go ahead.
If I can say no, I'm gonna give you a little praise there, buddy.
Go ahead.
When he was talking about me kind of reviewing something he was writing earlier, it was a Nightmare on Elm Street script where he wanted to bring Freddy back. He's got good ideas. There's a solid idea there. And
do it.
I feel like with a little refinement, it could be the thing.
Because I'm over the top. I'm over the top with ideas.
Well, let me tell you something. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, this guy wrote a spec script, a fake script for a 9/11 episode of Seinfeld, and he got so much recognition about it that he started to get hired in the industry. So writing these, even if it's a spec that you have for Nightmare on Elm Street, finish it, send it to people, and then it's a writing sample, and then you might get hired for other jobs. It doesn't mean that that's going to get made. It just means it shows that your ideas are valid. I mean, fucking a 9/11 episode of Seinfeld would
have been interesting to see.
And it's really funny. If you ever get a chance, go look it up. It's funny as fuck.
I'm just sitting there thinking about Kramer looking at his window going, and then just taking off.
Well, I think Kramer's thing is that he gets worried that Jerry gets worried that there's dust everywhere, and then Kramer, a friend of his, borrowed his box cutter, and it was one of the ones that's on the fuck.
Oh God,
it's fucked up.
I gotta look that up.
It's really funny. You gotta look it up.
Okay.
My whole Nightmare on Elm Street thing was just simply the thought process that if you're going to replace Robert Englund as Freddy, you need to replace Freddy, and you need to show that transformation.
Okay.
But I think that you can't forget where you come from. That's another problem with some of these newer franchises. They forget where they came from, and you have to pay some kind of tribute to the originals, because without those, we wouldn't be where we're at.
Absolutely. And I like the idea, like the basic idea. I read a lot of different of the unmade Freddys, like the ones where there was a cult of people called the Fredheads, who were worshiping Freddy, or Peter Jackson's treatment for the Dream Lover, where Freddy had lost so much power in the dream world that kids would go in and bully him. Yeah. And that finally he accidentally killed one of them and started to regain his powers. All these stories are so brilliant. So if you write yours, it might join the unmade lexicon of Freddy movies. So, and I like the idea of Freddy passing the torch to another demonic force that could possibly be just as interesting. So,
of course, against his will.
Yeah, of course. Freddy's not going out without a fight. Shit.
Now, speaking of random projects, because we've been talking about some things that we've been doing, any projects that you'd like to kind of put out there that you're working on that you could maybe talk about a little bit?
Sure. Of course, season 5 of The Last Drive-In has been greenlit. We've got a couple of. We definitely announced the Halloween special,
right,
which is coming out on 10/21, and then there'll be, I don't know the exact dates of the new specials, but there will be other specials. Then there will be a proper season probably in April or May for The Last Drive-In. So that's always exciting. I mean, who doesn't love The Last Drive-In? I mean, I sit there on Friday. My girlfriend gets kind of mad because we can't go out during The Last Drive-In season on Friday nights. I'm like, no, I'm staying in. I'm watching Joe Bob, because there's movies that I save that either I want to rewatch or I haven't seen before because I'm a fan. So there's that. My band and I, the Brennan and the Big Feet, who are part of The Last Drive-In, we're currently writing an album called The Drive-Thru Will Never Die, or The Last Drive-Thru. We haven't chosen the exact title, but it's basically tangentially related to The Last Drive-In, and it's about food, though. Drive-thru, cheeseburgers, that sort of stuff. And then I wrote my here's the major news, is that Yuki Nakamura and I Yuki Nakamura from the last
Yeah.
drive-in. Everybody loves Yuki. I mean, he's one of the most fascinating people I think I've ever met. We are joining forces to start a Patreon page where we're doing all sorts of content. I'm talking, we're doing 2 weekly podcasts. We're doing video content. We're doing all kinds of behind the scenes content. We're also doing all sorts of archival stuff. And then there's other stuff in the works. Like if we get enough patrons, we're going to start to make short movies. I mean, who doesn't want to see Yuki and John do Frankenstein? Like we're going to do crazy shit. So we've joined forces. We'll see if we get a little groundswell going. We're going to start to really up the ante on our content. And he's a funny motherfucker. I mean, the other day we did a podcast about his celebrity interactions because Yuki is like the Forrest Gump of production designers, but with a higher IQ. So he's met all these crazy celebrities. The motherfucker dealt with John Paul II, the Pope. Wow. And he said, not to spoil the podcast because it's still hilarious. He said he saw the aura of the Pope, and the aura of the Pope reached out and held his hand. And he said that he was as close as like 6 feet. So like these are the stories that you're going to get from you. So that's the big thing is Yuki and John Patreon buffet.
Shit, I'm going to have to subscribe to that.
I know. And otherwise we would put it out for free, but we figure like, let's just see if people are going to pay for it. What the fuck? Well,
why not?
We also, the funny thing is we're going to have 3 tiers. It's going to be like a small tier, a medium tier, and then the biggest tier is going to be $28,000 a month. So if somebody actually out there can afford $28,000 a month, and even if they pay us for 1 month, we win.
Hell yeah.
Why not try?
Up our charges.
Yeah, get your charges up. I mean, shit. You never know. There's fucking rich people out there who are like, yeah, I'll give this fucking, because there are people out there literally who $28,000 is like $20 to them. There are people out there like that.
I've seen people on Twitch do that stuff, and it blows my mind because they're just like, here's $20, here's $30, here's $50. I'm like, what do you do that you can just toss this shit like for a month and you're just so nonchalant about it? I don't understand it.
You never know who's out there. And that's the thing about the internet. It's like you put it out, maybe somebody finds it, somebody tells their friend, and then some random millionaire who's got $15 million in the bank says, let me tip these guys. Here you go. Here you go. Yeah.
It's nice, but I mean, damn.
We can hope for it, right?
You can. And as long as you put it out there that you want it, it might come to you.
I've gotten lucky a few times on my personal Patreon for my stuff where I've gotten a random person or two just chuck me a couple of bucks. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not going to complain. I mean, shit, that's money. If they stop paying, I'm okay with it. You didn't have to pay me. You did.
Look,
so
it's nice enough. Even if they pay 1 month, that's like a whole shit, man. It's just like a validation of what you're doing. So
yeah. So I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. So that's going to launch around Halloween. Probably Halloween. I interviewed Yuki in a coffin, so I think we're going to drop that on Halloween. You know, we put him in an actual coffin in a funeral home and interviewed him about life and death. It was pretty bizarre, to be honest.
So I've got to know, obviously there's going to be, with you and Yuki, there's got to be a Hogzilla moment, right?
Sure. I mean, we were talking about doing a full-blown Hogzilla commentary, but obviously we can't use any of the elements of the movie or the show or anything. So it's going to be basically like we're going to figure out like Riff Tracks does where it's like line it up on this moment and then go, and then we'll do our full-blown commentary.
All right.
I mean, the thing about Yuki is he's really fucking smart. Like he's got some bizarre ideas about life and death. And also philosophy, all theology, all the stuff about Yuki's mind is really interesting, to the point where it's like almost endless. You're very surprised, and then all of a sudden he'll just be like, "Oh yeah, I worked with Florence Henderson of the Brady Bunch." You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's just such a surprising, interesting, like traveled guy. And so part of my hope for this thing is that I am sort of the straight man, and he's the second banana, not the second banana, but like Abbott and Costello type thing, you know, and I'll draw out the craziness from Yuki because I'm already weird enough. Everybody knows that. But Yuki needs to have somebody pull the information out of him, and he has it. And already, like, we've done, I think, about 10 or 15 podcasts, and like there's video reactions also, and the fucking shit that he says is beyond funny. So
all right, I got one more question while I'm thinking about it before we wrap things up, because you were just kind of talking about it. You want to be the straight man for this. I mean, it kind of goes back to your music. How would you classify your music? Because I don't really see it as, it's not parody. I wouldn't consider it comedy.
No, it's not novelty. What I would say is it's genre hopping.
Okay.
I take a genre. It's so different than movies where I think that somebody shouldn't just start with genre. In music, I think that you should start with genre, and you should see if you could take an idea, whatever idea you might have for a song, and see if it would work as an Irish drinking song, or it might work as a rock and roll song, or it might work as a country song. You never know, because the thing is, music is more about emotion and feeling. So I would say that I've more experimented with genre and music, and that's what I do. I like hop from one genre to the other, because look, a song about your beating your children isn't going to work in, say, fucking love song, but in an Irish drinking song, it might be funny. You never know. You might get the right lyrics that work, you know? So,
but that explains how you go from Shark on a Dance Floor to My Horse Likes You, But I Don't. And because
exactly.
Completely different.
Exactly. So My Horse Doesn't Mind You, But I Don't Like You at All.
Yeah.
That's totally just my attempt at a weird country song, and I almost feel like John Wayne would have sang that in his head while being an asshole. But and then you get to like the other songs you said, Nowhere and Pantyhose. That's like a lo-fi, like rock and roll ween type. Shark on the Dance Floor is a full-on dance track.
Yeah.
That it's all about a guy who doesn't follow his woman out to the club because he's tired after he get off of work. She gets mad, and she gets seduced by the shark on the dance floor because her fucking man didn't follow her to the club. So there's all these little, and I also always with music start out with ideas about characters. The songs that I make aren't always about me. Sometimes they are, but it's almost like little snapshots or short movies or something like that about things that I can't get into actual scripts or whatever, and I make songs about them. So genre hopping, I would say.
Yeah, that's actually accurate as hell. Now that I think about it, that fits perfectly. So that explains everything in my head.
Think about it. You're watching an eclectic playlist of like a short film program at like a great film festival, and like one of them's a great comedy, one of them's a great fucking drama, one of them's a horror movie, one of them's a comedy. You know, you keep going and going. That's kind of what I try to do on my records.
It's a great way to put that.
That is exactly right. Les, you got anything else?
All I've got is to say thank you for coming on to the show. We really appreciate the fact that you came on to the show, and this has been probably one of my favorite shows.
No joke. This is one of my favorite times. I had such a great time. You guys are really easy to talk to, and you ask great questions, and it felt very natural. So thank you. Thank you for that.
And we would love, to have you back maybe at some point if you'd like to come back. So
absolutely. I'm like a vampire. You invite me, I keep coming back, and
the fact that this was our longest episode ever, absolutely, he's got to come back, because that says we had such a great time. We said
I'll bring Yuki. Forget about it. Just ask him some shit.
Hell yeah! The more the merrier.
Because we were just like, it'll be an hour and a half. It's almost 2 fucking hours. Come on.
Even after I edit some things out, I think we're still going to be sitting pretty high up on there.
Yeah, you'll be at an hour 40 easy.
Yeah,
probably.
So, John, I gotta say, we've probably been Twitter friends for quite a while now. I think I'm gonna say about at least last year, because I think it was about the last half of 2020 that I really got into the drive-in. Like, that's when I saw it and was like, ooh, this is an awesome thing. I'm gonna check it out, and then I really committed to it. And your interactions on Twitter meant a lot to me, because it kind of felt like I wasn't shouting into the void. You know what I mean? Because
Thank you so much.
I see somebody, you know, I'll make a joke, everybody's kind of commenting, saying stuff and whatever, and then just seeing that someone's reacting. It's just like, damn, I'm not invisible, because I do that shit all the time. I'll post something, my mom's like, are you still doing videos? And I'm like, yeah, I post something every week. And she's like, well, I never see it. And I'm just like, I know I posted it. I know you, I don't know how you didn't see it. So the fact that I'm being seen, or we're being seen, it means a lot. So I appreciate that.
Well, hey, keep doing it. And I love interacting. Like, you know, sometimes I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I see something I like. I just say, all right, I'll like what I like, you know? So, and I know, because when I first started at Twitter, I was making shit and nobody, I mean, like, I actually went back to the beginning of my timeline and looked. I didn't get fucking likes or retweets for 4 years. So don't worry, you'll keep building the audience, and I'll keep interacting. And now that we did this podcast, forget about it.
Hell yeah, dude. Like family. So Ramblers, let us know how you feel about John Brennan. Isn't he just the most awesome guest we've ever had on the show? You can tell us that on Twitter at horrorramblings.com. And if you got more to say and tweet just won't do, you can send us an email at horrorramblings.com and just gush about all things John Brennan. Give us your review of his latest album, and I'll read it out on the podcast, and then I'll forward it to him, and he can hear it.
Oh, fuck. They'd be like, what are you talking about, pantyhose? The worst goddamn song I ever heard.
And I'll shoot him back. Tell him as you're wrong. Hey guys, if you love social media groups, you can follow us on Facebook, join our Facebook group, and hang out with fellow horror fans like yourself. You can even find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images when we ever decide to post, because we're kind of laxing on that, but it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you're feeling generous and you want to support us financially at the moment. You can head on over to patreon.com/pencilpaperproductions. Chuck in a buck, help this and other shows like it under the banner grow. If you want to say nice things about the show, you can head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a beautiful 5-star review. Express your feelings, help the show grow at the same time. You can also do the very same thing on Spotify if you're so inclined. And even answer our questions and polls. I don't know what question I've asked of this episode. Maybe like, what do you think of John Brennan? Or what's your favorite song? That's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put on a poll. What's your favorite John Brennan song?
Fuck. Well, no, that's actually good. Some people might have likes this, but if they say, "What do you think of John Brennan?" They'll be like, "Look at his fucking Godzilla pumpkin head." You know, I'll start getting like that shit.
No, we'll say, "What's your favorite John Brennan song?" And I'll post a wide assortment of popular tunes, I guess, that people seem to like. Of course, I'll throw in my personal favorites, but, you know, they can say whatever they want. I'll fight back.
If they don't like his songs, we can send them the douchebag song. That works.
I love that's a great idea. Beautiful.
And Les doesn't know I'm going to do this, but, you know, if anybody out there wants to go to this website, faceofhorror.org/2022/Lester-Blosser and vote for Lester Blosser to be the newest face of horror. You've got, how many days? 9 days to vote.
That's for the first round.
For the first round. Yeah. You can follow this. He can be, if he's a horror enthusiast, because Lester loves horror, okay? And if he wins, this is what happens. He gets $13,000, a walk-on role in an independent film, a 2-night stay at Buffalo Bill's house. I'm not getting shit out of this, okay, people? So just understand that.
Wait, Buffalo Bill? That dude works on Chris Rowan. He works on The Last Drive-In. He's the set designer.
Okay,
and
so
the art director. Yeah,
we're not associated with.
No, that's
what
crazy.
John's saying.
I didn't even know. I've seen people posting that Face of Horror thing. I didn't know Buffalo Bill's house was a part of it.
My wife signed me up for it, and I didn't know that she signed me up for it.
That's awesome. No, Chris Rowan's a good guy, and the Buffalo Bill's house is really cool. So, yeah, okay, now I will endorse that shit. Do it. Go vote for Lester. Shit.
And he goes head-to-head with Kane Hodder in a photo shoot for Rue Morgue.
Amazing.
So come on, people, help Les out. Vote for him. I get dick out of this other than to watch my friend get to go through all this awesomeness, and I want to support that. So please go vote. It's a daily vote. You can do this whole thing. Links are down below. Hopefully by the time this comes out, you can still vote, so whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I endorse that shit. I don't get fucking nothing out of this. Go endorse this man.
Well, thank you guys.
So it's all for a good cause. We want to see this happen, okay? Most importantly, tell your fellow horror fiends to search Horror Ramblings on their preferred podcasting platform. If we're not there yet, we're working on it. And if nothing else, keep up with any and all things at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.